got to, no.
I didn't even go.
I know, but
Oh.
what if somebody took it thinking you were going to go and left it there? Yeah.
Your name tag?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm missing.
Maybe that's like, what's that show?
Sean gave you the reaction that you
sign.
wanted.
Was it Office Space? When they
Oh,
like fix the
Office.
glitch, they like kind of move them and just stop paying them.
this
It's
is
like,
you.
we just
Oh,
like took
yeah.
her name tag away. But she just keeps showing up.
There she is.
Yeah.
It's hard.
We will begin in 1
Oh, mine
minute.
has all the broken glass
Well,
on
I was
front
gonna
and back.
say, because mine is very similar.
Oh, is it? In fact,
not
I'm
the
glad to
front.
see that because
I just had my back glass replaced.
I have a destroyed phone.
Is that your work phone? A little bit aggressive.
No, I don't have one.
Oh.
I opted not to. I had two phones.
I've had two phones before and I don't
I
like
hated
it.
it.
Yeah.
It was nice at Beck and Raider because it was true. They wanted. I could either get money for my phone or take
Yeah.
a work phone. But since this isn't a Northern Michigan phone number, it's a Virginia one. I
Oh.
was like, I'll take the work phone. But I could use the same Apple ID, so I just kept it in my bag. If someone called that, it would show up on.
Yeah,
these
yeah,
phones.
yeah,
But I still have to carry it around.
yeah. Yeah, you do.
Ready, Mitch?
Yeah?
All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Traverse City Planning Commission's regular meeting. It's August 5th, and we're going to start with the land acknowledgement. The land in which we gather is the territory of the Ottawa and Chippewa peoples who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. Thank you for your strength and resilience in protecting this land and inspiring us to uphold our responsibilities to do the same. Roll call. Is somebody doing the roll call?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Commissioner Anderson,
Here.
Commissioner Knapp,
Here.
Commissioner McGillivray, Commissioner Treadwell,
Here.
Commissioner O'Brien,
Here.
Commissioner Duturi,
Here.
and Commissioner Hershey.
Here.
And we also have joining us tonight Maxwell Cameron, ex officio representing Grand Traverse County. And we are expecting, as far as we know, Commissioner McGillivray, but both Swanson and Heller are absent and excused tonight.
Thank you. Are there any announcements?
Yeah, just one. On your desk, we have printed out the prescriptive portion of the master plan that was adopted last year. That is the part that guides the planning commission the most with the action plan, the future land use map. We did not ask if everyone wanted a paper copy. If you choose not to want a paper copy, just leave it on your table when you leave and we'll put it back in our library so future planning commissioners will have the option for a paper copy as well. But if you do choose to take it, it is yours to keep. You can have it with you. We did not print for everyone the supplemental report. If you recall, it's quite comprehensive. We actually had to print it in 2 volumes because the binding wouldn't take well enough. But we do have copies of those, hard copies rather, in the office on display for people to come in to read. And of course, it's on the website. And same thing with the mobility action plan. But the recommendations from the mobility action plan were baked into the portion that is before you. That's the actionable part to guide the planning commission's decision making.
Thank you. It looks beautiful, and I think it'd be nice to use at meetings.
And give Katie a lot of credit with her graphic design background. She worked
Yeah, she
quite a
did.
bit with the printing company to get that all squared away.
Any other announcements?
And for me?
Okay, so we're going to move to number 5, approval of minutes. Approval of the May 6th draft regular meeting minutes, the April 15th draft study session minutes, and the May 20th and June 17th draft special meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve all of the meeting minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to number 6, old business. Public hearing and consideration of a planning commission initiated zoning text amendment to extend the duration of approval for conditional rezonings in section 1320.05J and possible recommendation to the city commission. So the public hearing is now open, and Mr. Winter, what do you have to say on this?
Yeah, so this is a zoning text amendment that was initiated by the Planning Commission after receiving a request from John Collins, who had previously been approved for a conditional rezoning, and he expressed that he's still working on it, but the timeline, he wasn't able to get his plans together to move forward with construction yet. It was brought up through discussion by the Planning Commission, a desire to explore possibly extending those timelines. So we brought that back in June, and had a discussion. We had a couple different options. One option would be to just eliminate the conditional rezoning from the zoning ordinance, which is something we talked about. Leave the timelines as they are, or go ahead and extend them. And based on the feedback that we heard from the Planning Commission, the desire was to keep it in there, yet extend it. So instead of being 75% done at 2 years and 100% at 3, we bumped that all 1 year out, with the option for 2 one-year extensions authorized administratively by the planning director. But after that, they have to then come back to the Planning Commission and City Commission if they need to extend beyond that. There were some questions raised that related to the city attorney, so I sat and talked with her on some of these. She still has her concerns. She said I could share this with you all, but if this comes to the City Commission, she will probably be recommending to them again that they remove it from the zoning ordinance. It's still an option in state law, but the City Commission doesn't have to accept that. Some of the concerns that exist as it relates to this is zoning travels with the land. So the fact that this has an expiration is not consistent with zoning as is outlined in the Zoning Enabling Act. Furthermore, if you have 75% construction at 2 or 3 years, where we decide on, you're vested at that point. The courts are going to not necessarily allow the city to decommission that. You've invested into that project. So I just bring that up because, again, she talked to me about that. If the Planning Commission wanted to follow suit with that and decide to possibly explore removing it from the zoning ordinance, it would require a separate public hearing. I talked with her this afternoon about it because that's not what was included in the public notice. There was also concerns about the existing contracts because conditional rezoning is a contract. She expressed no concern with that because those contracts that are existing have already been executed, so they're memorialized. And as far as the opportunity for the extensions that are in the proposed amendment, she said that would just be written into the future contracts if this was to be approved. And I think that's it.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody from the public who would like to make a comment on this matter? Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing and now bring it back to this body for any questions or comments. Ryan?
Mr. Winter, does the city attorney just oppose the concept of contract zoning, or is it in its entirety, or does she simply oppose these changes?
She does not oppose these changes. She said she had no problem with those changes. I think there's some legal liability that comes with it, as I mentioned, like the idea that you can cancel a building when it's, say, only 70% done. Like, she's like, they're going to be vested. We can't really enforce that. Okay. That was her one thing. It's also, what she said is, and we've discussed this in June, oftentimes conditional rezoning is just used to get around limitations in the zoning ordinance. And she's like, if that's the problem, then let's address the standards. That's a more clear way to address this. And I've noticed that in the 10 years since I moved back. There's been some times where it's like, well, we want a conditional rezoning because we want to drive through here, and this district doesn't allow them. So.
What if it's simply they can't get the funding? That it's nothing like that. That, you know, they're going for grants or whatever, mm-hmm. and they can't get it in the time frame. Then what happens?
I mean, according to the language, it sounds like it could be canceled.
Right.
It could be voided. Whether that's legal standing or not is something that she would have to speak to. Which is, again, I think why she thinks it's cleaner just to have that gone. So she also noted that the act says that you may have it. You're not required to have it. Also, the Zoning Enabling Act is pretty specific in how zoning works, but if you've ever looked at it for conditional rezoning, it's about 2 sentences. So it doesn't provide a lot of direction to municipalities and how they're supposed to operate legally within that piece of legislation.
Sorry.
Brian?
Oh.
Go ahead.
David?
Sean, sorry. She's going to look to strike the extension language?
No, but if this comes to the City Commission as a recommendation to extend these, it'll be up to the City Commission to enact those or not, but she said she would express her, through probably cover memo, that her recommendation would be just to eliminate it completely from the ordinance. Now, Whether the city commission wants to go that route or the planning commission wants to go that route, it has to go back through the public hearing process. So if the city commission supports that and says, you know what, yeah, maybe we do want to consider giving it, they're going to have to kick it back to you. You're going to have to hold a public hearing. So, you know, I think it's really up to you as a body what you feel is the most appropriate. You send it to the city commission and they will, they'll have a discussion on it with their attorney and figure out where they want to go from there.
Brian?
Okay, my feeling is simply it's a tool. We have lots of tools, some we use a lot, some we don't use hardly ever. We don't go and we're not going through our zoning ordinance and eliminating everything that only gets used rarely. I mean, if we were gonna do that, you know, how often do we do PUDs? We just did one, but before that, the last one was what, Morgan Farms? We've got what?
We did the senior center about a year and a half ago, but you're right, they're
okay.
rare. I think Fairway Hills, Morgan Farms, couple down by Graylickville as you head that way, some of those are PUDs, but yeah, it is a pretty rare one.
So that being said, the other thing is, I understand it can be used as a way to get around this existing zoning. But that's on us as a planning commission. If we don't like it, then, or if we just think it's getting around rezoning the property, then we can make adjustments. Sometimes, in this case, this last case, it's being used as a tool to satisfy concerns by the neighbors. Okay, so, and that makes, and that's a legitimate use of that as a tool. He wants to come in, he wants to put in something, the zoning allows him to put in something that goes beyond his plans, that the neighbors find offensive. And as a result of that, he's going to eliminate those options from his plans. At any time, and in the past, if a project doesn't go forward, we simply rescind it. And it's pretty much, it goes, Sean would talk to the applicant. If the applicant's abandoning the project, they would just send a notice they're not going to do it. And then we vote, hold a public hearing, and reverse it. It's bulky, it's not, you know, but it's not like controversial. I think this is, addresses the issue with what tool we have and does get used. And it also is, you know, and it's the 75% thing. I have no idea about that. I don't know if it's important or not. Honestly, if somebody's 70% going and is progressing and they're okay with, you know, and they're getting extensions from the building department, then it's good. But if I think by extending this time, it addresses a tool. If the city commission wants to remove it, or if you guys want to remove it, then somebody needs to, you know, then that's a vote that should have been taken. And we should have made that decision at the beginning of this, not at this point.
I'm a no vote on this, purely for standards reasons. I think I asked Sean at the last meeting that we talked about this, you know, how many other cities have this or how many other municipalities have something like this. And, you know, I should have emailed you, Sean, earlier to ask if you could come up with some kind of data for that information. But I just think that we should just get rid of it entirely. And I would love to go through all of the zoning ordinances and decide which ones we should get rid of. But this one's on our plate right now. I think we have an opportunity to kind of streamline the process and create a little less work for us. The developer can do whatever, they can, you know, like I know pot shops was the big thing, right? He can decide that he doesn't want to have a pot shop in that building that he builds. That's up to him without the conditional rezoning. And yes, I understand that like the conditional rezoning travels with the land sale and everything, but you know, like we just don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. So I guess like, why are we, I just don't want to, I'm tired of creating work for ourselves, I think, is what it really comes down to. It's a lot of work. I mean, and Brian, you even pointed out that we rescinded one recently. So like, I think that's cause enough to like talk about getting rid of it entirely. I don't, you know, like I'm a no vote, end of story.
I mean, the reason it was rescinded was simply because the developer decided it wasn't going to work for them. The project wasn't going to work. So, but financially, and they changed their mind on it. they weren't a normal developer. It was actually a law firm. And they just decided it was more than they wanted to bite off, so they backed out. But again, it was an opportunity for them to address something by adding housing to the city in an area next to a commercial building, but that was also next to residential in a very controversial time. And the purpose of it was to, instead of asking for a full-out rezoning, by doing a contract rezone, they were able to address some, but not all, of the neighbors' concerns. I think that's what it gets used for here. And for the most part, it's an ability, and it's an opportunity for people, instead of coming and asking for a straight rezoning, to basically, to get something that, allows them to put something in that the city may desire, but the neighbors may oppose. But because every zoning basically allows you to build whatever you want under zoning. So when you upzone something, you can go to the limit. And whether or not the developer wants to go to the limit or not, that's up to the developer. But if he puts these self-limits on themselves, it's easier for them to get it through than asking us for a full rezone, because maybe we don't agree with everything that's allowed under a full rezone, but we're okay with what they want to do. And it's just, like I said, it's just another tool. And I think the one, the last one over on Munson it was a weird one, I'll be honest, But if we have the ordinance, the timing is, I think with this, bottom line, last I'll say, I just think these times we are in right now, we need to give developers, builders, as much flexibility as possible and not take away tools from them.
And I think that's what we were talking about at the last meeting. It's, trades are hard to find, and materials are going up in cost, and so there's delays. And that was this was accommodating for the time we're in. So, that's how I view it.
Couldn't it be argued that getting rid of it, though, is doing the same thing? Because, right?
Unless the entirety of that project hinges on the neighbors being okay with it, which I think in this particular instance, I kind of got that vibe. But I would agree that I think getting rid of it would probably do the same thing, unless somebody is trying very, very hard to accommodate neighboring properties.
Yeah.
I don't really have an opinion either way. It's kind of weird, but is it possible for us to, this is going to be funny. So I really, it is really time consuming when we go through this whole process as a board and we pass it up to the city, and then the city says, no, do the other thing that we had also talked about and considered. Can we start the process on the other one and pass them both up and let them choose? So that, because I don't know, I feel like there's enough vibe going both directions. It would save time, I just don't know if you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting proposal. My gut would be probably not. That can be
Yeah.
very confusing that you're noticing two different potential amendments to the same
To the
section
same
of the zoning
thing.
ordinance. So I would recommend maybe not doing that. I know it is frustrating that things sometimes move slow, but that's also by design
Yeah.
for notice and transparency and stuff. So, I mean, I think there was a very robust discussion. I hear both sides right now. I think you've noticed this public hearing. As I said, the attorney noted that she would most likely bring this up, her recommendation to the city commission. We don't know if the city commission is going to support that recommendation.
Right.
So and it's hard to guess from your vantage point, what they're going to support, it may be best to send this up. I think you put a lot of good faith time and thought into it and how it can be a better tool on the topic of having options, and see what they say. You know, I mean, that's kind of the reality of some of these situations. They may say, yep, this makes perfect sense, or it may start a conversation at that level where they think maybe a different direction needs to go, and then they send it back. And those are just options and how the process can work.
Yeah, and I'd say it's our duty as this body, and I guess I'm speaking as somebody that serves on both the Planning Commission and the City Commission, we have put in time and effort, staff has put in time and effort in the discussion of this and examining how we've used it. And I would say it's our duty to then pass it up to the City Commission, and then at that point, the city attorney can weigh in publicly, and we can, we being Jackie and I and the rest of the city commissioners, can decide what we want to do. We can choose to act on this as written, or we can amend it, or we can send it back with notes. And yeah, I don't want to speak for the whole board in saying what their decision would be. I can see a case at that point of saying, okay, the recommendation is to just get rid of this entirely, we can do that. Or if we want, we hear, for example, strong voice from the public that in the need for transparency with larger scale developments that fall under this zoning process. And going through the process as currently written does have more public hearings.
So if we pass this up, the city commission can just decide to remove conditional rezones? Or does that still have to come back down to us and go back?
That would have
Okay.
to come down. So the city
Okay.
commission can't take action on any zoning until the planning commission has held a public hearing on it. So they can initiate any amendment
They
they
could
want.
amend this any,
Any way they want.
Yeah, they can tweak it, but like if it's outside the spirit of what was noticed, which was extending the timelines, then I think the
Renotice,
recommendation is going to be, do the notice again. It's better to be safe to be sorry.
Yeah.
I think you're going to probably see a tightening of procedures, so there may be some procedural amendments coming to you. I think that's part of the concern about this. I mentioned the liability issue. As you're probably aware, one of our neighboring jurisdictions had a unfavorable lawsuit handed down through some subjective decision-making, so you're probably going to see more clearly defined black and white standards being advocated moving forward, just to protect the city and its liability.
Are there non-zoning tools that would enable a property owner to convey some of the benefits to neighbors, for instance, that we've found so persuasive in this situation, like deed restrictions?
Yeah.
I mean, if they're, in terms of the number of tools that are available, I know they're different tools, but if we're trying to incent neighbor-sensitive behavior, why, and there's another route for that property owner to take to accomplish that. Just a comment /
Yeah.
suggestion.
I would say, I mean, deed restrictions are there. We can't require a
Right.
deed restriction, obviously. I think Brian may have thoughts on this. I had a planning commission chair who was a realtor who had very strong opinions about deed restrictions because they are there forever and they're one of the hardest things to get away. So like, for instance, at the end of Division Street, or sorry, at the end of 14th and Division, what was the Fifth Third Bank, Tom's used to own that. So there's deed restrictions on that property. It can't sell fried chicken. It can't sell shrimp. It can't sell produce. You know, it's like, it's kind of weird, and that made it sense for competition for that property owner 50 years ago, but it may not be in the city's best interest for what that corner could handle in the future. So I don't think you'll often hear planners or attorneys advocating that as the most effective tool. You know, we had a situation, before I started working at the city, the city manager, probably about 2017, pulled a lot of regional planners together to talk about some railroad properties, and there's so many layers of deed restrictions that had been put on some of these properties. It kind of made it impossible to do anything with unless we could get it into a land blank and clear the title on it, so.
So I'm developing a property. You don't like something, I put a deed restriction on it. I come to the city, tell them about the deed restriction, I get the rezoning. I then go in, after I got my rezoning, and I remove the deed restriction. The other question for a deed restriction is who enforces the deed restriction? So you would have to transfer it to a third party, otherwise the enforcement is the person who granted it, who can amend it, change it, remove it at any time they want. So deed restrictions are, usually they're added onto a property when the property is sold, and the person who puts on the deed restriction still has the ability to enforce it. And they are unwieldy and difficult to enforce. Quick question, if the whole 75% complete thing, is that something that we could strike or the city commission could strike?
I think you could probably strike that in your recommendation. And I would note that in the memo, and then if the city attorney has an issue, it would come up during the city commission meeting that maybe it needs to come back. But I think that is within the spirit of what was noticed, so I think you could do that. You might want to, and honestly, I think that would be easier for us to administer. Either a building has the occupancy permit at some point, or it doesn't. 7 people could argue whether a building's at 75%, 72%, 73%. You know, it's not very black and white. It becomes very subjective into how you make that determination.
And we've seen with the property about 100 yards to the north of us, next to the Park Place, how contentious when it gets into the courtroom, what it counts as a building has substantially started completion. I mean, started development even.
Yeah.
So if we have something like an occupancy permit that is a clear black and white, then that does remove the grayness.
Yeah, you could change the language to just say that, you know, an occupancy permit has to be received or obtained within 4 years, or you can get 2 one-year extensions administratively, or then come back to the planning commission.
Actually really like that. Mac?
I'm open to this, but I don't know if I want to do this tonight.
That's fine.
And whether or not it's something that would be better off having staff review and bring back to us.
So I would be happy to do that. I would like a little more clear direction on what you want me to look into. What that would allow me to do is talk with the city attorney on the threshold of whether she thinks that requires another public hearing, at which point we'll just schedule that for the next regular meeting. So when it comes back to you, if a hearing's required, it'll be scheduled and on the agenda, so.
Maxwell, something to say?
Just a comment, I don't get to vote, so the 75 and 100% completion was the thing that I would be most apprehensive about with these changes, so I think that you guys are having a really great conversation about maybe making a line that's more clearly defined, and certificate of occupancy, you know, could be that. So, yeah, I think that's a good discussion.
What do you all think about Sean's suggestion of not voting on it tonight and giving it back to staff to work on it for a recommendation to come back to us?
So I'm in favor of it. You know, if there's a majority who are against it, we're a small group tonight.
Yeah.
So I have no problem waiting and bring it back in September
I don't
and
either.
addressing it then.
Does
I mean-
anybody have an objection to that?
I just don't want it to, so we already granted the approval for the certain property owners.
Yeah, so there's only
situation.
one.
So this is just for the,
This would be
text
moving
amendment.
forward.
Okay.
Yeah, so that one that hasn't started and isn't completed, obviously, yet, they've been approved by the city commission as well. So this will have no bearing
Okay.
really on their project at this
Okay.
time.
Okay.
So yeah, there's nothing hinging on a decision tonight, is the point. So we could easily, I could have more internal discussion on some of the things I've heard today, and work with the chair on some of that, and bring it back at the September meeting, if that is the will of the commission.
I could go either way. I just don't want to waste staff's time. So if we have a really clear directive, I think that's great. But if we, because in theory, we could go through that. We could wait till September, then pass it up, and the city commission could still send it back for more work, so.
My guess is the city attorney's never been a fan.
Yeah.
The planning director's never been a fan. They've never approached, no one has actually taken it to the city commission and asked them to eliminate it. When there was a fight over that where you live, which, and then, that would have been a time for them to think, hey, let's just get out of this.
Yeah.
And there's been no movement in that direction. So I think this just improves it. Again, it's a tool. I don't know, and as for direction, why do we even need to have 100% completion? Why don't we just say the project has to be, we have there is a standard for vesting, right?
Mhm.
So generally, I think it's when footings are in the ground. So, footings in the ground. Once someone starts a project, they're pretty much going to go forward with it, and at that point, if it doesn't happen, someone else can come along and do it. But if they never start the project, it should, end. My concern is not about how long, it is about starting the project.
Completing it, it's
Yeah,
starting.
completing it. Once someone starts it, they generally complete it. We've had some holes, but even then,
But I don't even know that those were tied to a conditional rezoning.
They weren't.
They were separate issues,
Yeah.
so.
we've had some holes and we have some work, but we've never had, well, maybe they did. I don't know, it's possible one of those, the building on Park, and they might have started footings, but I don't think so. I think he just put the hole in. Usually they dig the hole, they tear down the other building, then they get upset about the inability to do what they want to do because of zoning. And they pick up their blocks and go home.
And then the whole sits there.
So, one thing you could do, is get rid of those percents. Maybe not focus on the completion, but the actual starting of it. So maybe it's just simple as, you know what, you have 5 years to get your footings in the ground. That's it. Maybe there's no need for extension. 5 years to get footings in the ground. If you're coming to ask for a conditional rezoning, it seems like that would be somewhat reasonable. I don't know, it's just an idea.
I like that
I
myself.
like that too.
After 5 years it expires because,
You haven't started. Our land use permits expire after a year or two. I can't remember offhand, but.
What
And
is
then
it?
there's no, it doesn't put the city organization in a difficult situation of making a 75% call that someone's gonna challenge us legally on because they think it's 76% or something.
after 5 years, they can come back and ask us again. So we don't need an extension. Just you get 5 years. Do it or don't. Get the footings in the ground.
Makes it a lot easier.
A lot easier, a lot less complicated, and, and I think 5 years makes sense as a number, because aren't we required to review our master plan every 5 years? So that's kind of in planning, that's a mark where something might change.
That's a good point.
How does everybody else feel about that? Mitch?
Personally, I would like to see a number. Yes, 75% is a number, or an occupancy permit is not a number, but it's still a benchmark towards the mostly completed end of it, because though we haven't seen a problem with it in this community, I have seen it in other communities where you can have a process that has a lot of the permitting process and zoning lined up for a specific development, and the development starts and then peters out. And you're left with something that now is less suitable to future development because it's got a half-built building on it.
Is it too confusing then to say the footings are in the ground by a certain time and the completion is by a certain time?
And occupancy is by a certain time.
Oh, but if it's not completed, what are you gonna do? Like
That'd
you
be
said, you get back into the whole vesting question. So someone comes in, they start a project, they run out of money, they go bankrupt, the developer dies, there's a major issue,
just
they
sits
sell
there.
out the project, you know, and now you're gonna pull the zoning away because it's not complete. Does that mean it's more or less likely that the project is gonna be continued by someone else and finished? I think it makes it less likely. You know, we've got the zoning, these is the zoning, these are the conditions. If a new developer comes in, it doesn't do anything. The zoning does not impact the ability of a developer to finish a project. He's got a project, he's doing a project. If something happens, what, you know, and we yank the zoning away, what does that do? Just makes the project less likely to be completed by a new developer or someone else. It sits there, it's not, because we've taken the zoning away, does that make it easier for us now to go in and force them to remove it or do something else? I think if they get to that point, it's pretty much, you know, you start getting into, you know, there's all sorts of other issues or questions there, but generally it just gets to sit there, you know, unless the city wants to sue them. And I don't think the zoning question makes it less likely. I think it's just, you know, like I said, it's not a tool that gets used a lot, but I think in general, you know, I just don't see the zoning playing in with that question. So,
Well, I've heard two things now. One is footings in the ground within a certain number of years. One is give it back to staff and send back some recommendations. How does everybody feel?
I want to send it back to staff. I think that's clear, but
You okay with that, Anna, sending it back?
Yeah, I'm fine with that as long as we're considering the recommendation of removal of conditional rezones as one of those potential options. Because then we can get more feedback from Lauren and more feedback from you on other regional municipalities. I would like that
I
to be
think
in
that's a
there.
good idea. Everybody think that's a good idea?
Well, I'd like to move this up to the city commission. I might be in the minority here, but there has been a certain amount of staff time and discussion. The city commission could have further points that they want staff to work on, and that could move it along closer to something that we can actually have completed rather than having it go from us to staff, then back to us, then to the city commission, then back to staff, then back to us, back to city.
We have to take a vote on whether it goes to staff.
there's no motion on the
Truly,
floor.
do
So if
we,
there's no motion, we move forward, or someone needs to make a motion.
do you need
Do you need a
us
motion?
to table it? Does it, what is the formality?
I would not table, I would
Okay.
defer.
Okay.
is The word, yeah. It does make it clear and gives us direction if there is a motion, it's on the record. So there could be a motion,
To
you know,
defer.
to defer.
I'll make a motion to defer.
And have staff review and bring back recommendations.
That's what I just said.
Okay, so we had a motion by Brian. actually.
Motion by
defer
Brian,
to
do we have a
staff.
second?
Second.
A second by David. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
A roll call vote.
Commissioner O'Brien,
No.
Treadwell,
No.
McGillivray,
Yes.
Knapp,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Naturi,
Yes.
and Hershey.
Yes.
So
Motion
we've got
carries, right?
5 yeses, 2 nos. Carries.
Motion carries. Well, thank you. That was a good discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, you gave us a lot of good feedback, so I'll take that up with the attorney. We'll come up with some ideas. I'll probably be working with the chair and vice chair on that. So.
Okay, let's move on to new business, the natural features inventory presentation of our fantastic interns. Would you like to, who's going to cue this up?
Yes, I'll queue it up, but bear with us. We have some technology to boot up, and we're going to
Okay.
do a little seat changing real quick. So
Okay.
while they're doing that, this presentation you're going to have is the natural features inventory. As you know, that we had 3 interns working with us this summer. I'll have them introduce themselves momentarily with where they go to school and all that, where they're from. We had a variety of tasks that they worked on, including helping us with our application for the bicycle-friendly communities, the AARP aging-friendly community, I think it was called, a couple other long-term projects, learning a lot about how planning and zoning works within the department. But we also had this longer-range plan, the natural features inventory. And so there's a lot of data that we have out there. And so their primary objective was to create a baseline, a starting point where we've pulled all this data into one location that we can view it, the public can view it, and we can have a better understanding of all these different natural features, elements that exist within the city. And then the second objective is just getting to familiarize themselves with the city's data and using GIS as a great tool that it is. So with that, I want to also acknowledge and thank our City Planning Commissioner, Jerry Swanson, and his employee, Jacob Weston, in the IT and GIS departments, because they were very instrumental in providing guidance and technical support to our interns. And so with that, I will turn it over to them.
Great. Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having us. My name's Ted Arnold. Some of you may recognize me. I was the student liaison to this body a couple years ago. So it's really great to be back with you all and back in the city. I'm a rising senior at George Washington University studying political science. So I'll be graduating this May. It's been really great to spend the summer here and really excited to present the natural features inventory to you.
And I'm Cole Maxon. I'm a lifelong resident of Traverse City. I go to Michigan State University, and I'm a grad student in urban and regional planning. For the past 2 years, I've been bouncing around various internships in various city functions. So 2 years ago with Nicole Van Ness in parking services, last year with Jerry Swanson in GIS, and this summer with Sean, Leslie, and Dave. And it's been great. Love being here.
Hi, my name is Olivia Ned. I am also a graduate student at MSU studying urban and regional planning. I am originally from Grand Rapids, but I was fortunate enough to find an internship and a place to live here in Traverse City for the summer. Great. So today we wanted to share with you a bit about one of our projects that we worked on this summer. That is the Traverse City Natural Features Inventory Story Map and subsequent standalone map. If you have never used a story map before, it's a tool that integrates interactive maps with other multimedia such as text and images, and it's a great tool for adding context and narrative to traditional map making. Our story map combines maps, text, and images to tell a story about the natural features that exist within the 8.3 square miles of Traverse City. This resource will serve as an interactive guide designed to help our city better understand, protect, and plan in harmony with the remarkable natural features that define the characteristics of Northwest Michigan. The city is home to a unique and wide array of natural features, including rolling hills, steep slopes, forests, lake shores, and wetlands. These features provide critical ecological functions, scenic beauty, and recreational opportunities. As the city continues to grow and change, it is essential that we plan thoughtfully and guided by data and a commitment to stewardship and sustainability. The story map is designed to be more than just an inventory of natural features found within the city limits. It is also meant to be an interactive narrative meant to inspire future-informed land use decisions that promote sustainability, conscious development, and environmental stewardship. Through interacting with the various map layers, it may be possible to identify patterns and show potential for greenways, areas of environmental concern, as well as things to celebrate. The story map includes a summary of the environmental characteristics and the geographical area of the city, meant to highlight the areas where a higher concentration and quality of natural features exist.
All right, and to start off with our first feature, it's going to be geologic ones. And to start, it's going to be soils. And Traverse City is home to a wide variety of soils, and these present both opportunities and challenges. The soils found in our region are largely sandy and well-drained, and were formed and deposited by glacial outwash, a process in which various materials are deposited by large quantities of water that flow from melting glaciers. The fine sediments deposited through this process are ideal for supporting our local forests and fruit orchards, but can also increase the potential for nutrient leaching and stormwater infiltration issues, particularly in developed areas. And just some brief summaries of our city's soils. There is loam, which is a balanced soil consisting of equal parts sand, silt, and clay. It's nutrient dense and ideal for agriculture and growing. There's loamy sand, which is a loamy soil with with a significantly higher concentration of sand. It's also good for agriculture, gardening, and drainage. There's gravelly sandy loam, which is a loamy soil with significant concentration of gravel, sand, and clay. It still supports growing due to the loamy quality, yet it is less ideal than a balanced loam. Gravelly soils are soils that contain significant concentrations of gravel. They're good for drainage due to the large air pockets between particles, but it is not ideal for growing. Mucky soils are characterized by a high concentration of organic materials. It is high in nutrients but susceptible to nutrient imbalances, which can lead to plant disease. It is also renowned for having poor drainage, and it is also prone to sliding. There are mucky, loamy sands, which are a mixture of soil that consists of organic and mineral material. It is nutrient dense, and it too is prone to sliding. Peat is an important non-renewable surface soil consisting of partially decayed vegetation or organic matter. It improves drainage and stores carbon dioxide, but has low nutrient density. Sandy soils, which the city is primarily composed of, are good for drainage and have poor nutrient density. Sandy loam is another loamy soil with a high concentration of sand. It is good for agriculture, gardening, and drainage. And finally, silty clay loam is characterized by a high proportion of clay and silt particles. It's good for drainage, but problematic for construction due to its tendency to expand. And moving on from soils, I'm going to be covering our city's steep slopes. Our steep slopes are found primarily in the edges of the city, namely in the city's Base of Old Mission, Hilltop, Morgan Farms, and Slabtown neighborhoods, as well as in the corridors adjacent to the Boardman River and Kitts Creek. These slopes pose significant constraints for development due to increased risk of erosion, instability, and stormwater runoff. Vegetation plays a critical role in stabilizing these areas, and removal or disturbance can lead to sedimentation in nearby waterways, which in turn impacts water quality and aquatic habitats. And steep slopes require special consideration in planning to avoid environmental degradation and to protect scenic viewsheds. And preserving these features is essential for maintaining the city's natural character and ecological health.
I'm going to take you through some of the city's water and wetland features. So the numerous bodies of water flowing through and adjacent to Traverse City shape our city's way of life. Our freshwater network supports fish and wildlife habitat, absorbs stormwater, recharges groundwater, and offers scenic and recreational value for residents and visitors. Protecting these aquatic systems is essential to maintaining water quality in Grand Traverse Bay, especially as the city grows. So the first one we're going to look at is Grand Traverse Bay. The downtown core of Traverse City lies at the head of the west arm of Grand Traverse Bay, and the eastern neighborhoods of the city lie on the shore of the bay's east arm. The bay is a natural 32-mile-long harbor of Lake Michigan, and it historically paved the way for early European settlement and later industrial and commercial development of Traverse City and our region. As a direct part of the Great Lakes system, it's imperative that planning for Traverse City's future ensures that the bay remains protected and minimally impacted by human activity for the continued safety, benefit, and enjoyment of all residents. The Boardman, or Ottaway River, begins in the forested hills of Grand Traverse and Kalkaska counties and winds its way through the city before emptying into Grand Traverse Bay. The city has been the focus of a region-wide ecological restoration, including the removal of 3 dams since 2012. The culmination of this initiative is underway right now with the Union Street Dam, where the Fish Pass Project, a pioneering research and fish control initiative led by the Great Lakes Fisheries Commission, will finally restore the river to its natural flow and fish passage for the first time since 1850. Boardman Lake is a natural lake formed along the course of the Boardman River. Situated just south of downtown Traverse City, the lake is divided between the city to the north, Garfield Township to the south. The lake supports a variety of fish and wildlife species and plays a key role in the city's watershed. Historically, industrial in nature, recent investments such as the Boardman Lake Loop and improvements to Hull Park have enhanced recreational opportunities and access to the lake while also promoting conservation. The lake acts as a settling basin for sediments and nutrients, making its protection critical to the health of the broader Grand Traverse Bay ecosystem. And that picture right there is a really great example of that industrial past of Boardman Lake that's really changed quite a bit in the last 100 years. Kids Creek is a tributary of the Boardman or Ottaway River, which flows through the city's west side, including the Munson Medical Center and Grand Traverse Commons campuses. Like its parent river, Kids Creek and its tributaries have been the target of ongoing restoration efforts, including daylighting the previously covered parts of the stream near Munson Medical Center in 2013 and riparian buffer restoration work near Meyer in the last couple years. These initiatives have been spearheaded by the Watershed Center and the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians in partnership with local landowners and adjacent municipalities. And some of that construction work ongoing at Munson about a decade ago. Mitchell Creek also runs through the city, and it feeds into the east arm of Grand Traverse Bay, which is the source of the city's drinking water. The stream and its numerous tributaries begin to the south of Traverse City and flow north through the city limits, primarily through this portion of Cherry Capital Airport property. In its lower reaches, the stream flows through a number of sensitive wetlands, which serve a number of critical ecological functions before the stream enters the bay. And restoration and preservation work is ongoing here as well, thanks to the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy and its many partners. Traverse City's wetlands are quiet yet powerful ecosystems that play an important role in maintaining the city's environmental health. Found along stream corridors, forested wetlands, and the shores of Grand Traverse Bay, our wetlands act as natural filters by trapping sediment, absorbing excess nutrients, and improving water quality. They can also help manage stormwater runoff by soaking up rainfall and absorbing fast-moving currents, reducing the risk of flooding downstream in developed areas. Wetlands support an incredible diversity of plant and animal life, including amphibians, migratory birds, rare native species. As climate change and development pressures intensify, protecting and restoring these sensitive areas is more important than ever to make sure that Traverse City remains resilient and ecologically balanced. And then floodplains, downstream of what we're talking about with the wetlands there, preserving and protecting floodplains is of vital importance, especially in developed areas. Undisturbed floodplains serve as natural sponges, absorbing excess water and slowing down its flow, while also providing habitat for wildlife. When development occurs in or around floodplains, it can increase flood risk, disrupt natural water flow, degrade habitat, lead to costly property damage, and cause potential long-term environmental impacts. Managing and preserving floodplains is crucial for future developments, and knowing where these floodplains are is important for all residents. And then a riparian buffer is a vegetated area on the banks of a stream, river, or lake that separates the waterway from human development and potentially harmful runoff. Like floodplains, riparian buffers are important areas to protect. They provide green space for recreation, offer habitat for wildlife, and enhance the natural character of our waterways. Disturbances in these areas may again contribute to habitat loss, environmental degradation, and erosion. Healthy riparian buffers make our city more resilient in the face of climate change and extreme weather events. And as you may know, the Riparian Buffer Subcommittee and city staff are currently working to update Traverse City's ordinances to reflect the value of these zones, placing increased protections around the bodies of water that are central to our region's identity.
Thank you, Ted. I'm going to talk a little bit about trees now. Traverse City is fortunate to have a substantial amount of tree coverage, something that is relatively rare for a city. And if you look around, there is no question that the region used to be a hot spot for logging and that the city's beginnings were a result of the logging industry. Traverse City has been recognized as a Tree City USA for 36 years and takes great pride in taking care of its tree canopy. The map to the right displays a regularly updated map of all city-owned trees, a resource that helps the Parks and Recreation Department keep track of all the trees that are owned and maintained by the city. Each fall and spring, the Traverse City Parks and Rec Department completes a tree planting project that is meant to supplement the trees that removed in the previous year of development. An urban tree canopy or urban forest refers to the amount of tree coverage found within a city's limits. Trees provide a wide range of benefits to the urban environment, including reduced urban heat, reduced urban heat energy usage, cleaner air, improved air quality, improved wildlife habitat, and a greater aesthetic appeal. According to iTree, which is a USDA Forest Service that provides urban and rural forest analysis, the Traverse City tree canopy is providing nearly $670,000 worth of benefits in terms of carbon dioxide uptake, stormwater mitigation, and other air quality improvements, which is amazing.
Thank you, Liv. I'm going to talk about some of our city's urban features. So first and foremost, our parks and trails. Parks are an essential part of the urban environment. They provide a reprieve from the continuous urban landscape. Uninterrupted development can lead to a number of issues like high urban heat, storm drainage issues, and generally make for a bland and unappealing landscape. Within the city limits, we have more than 30 parks and recreation areas, ranging from golden sand beaches to urban neighborhoods to quiet wooded natural areas. Parks enhance the community by promoting health and well-being and by protecting natural features. The city maintains a directory where you can explore the city's parks and learn more about recreation opportunities. And we also have a wealth of non-motorized and grade-separated trails connecting our many neighborhoods, parks, and natural areas. These biking and walking trails make the city more accessible to people of all ages and connect Traverse City to the greater region through the TART network. And then I'm going to go a little more in depth on the urban heat that you've heard us talking about here. So the urban heat island effect is a phenomenon where cities and urbanized areas experience higher temperatures than rural, undeveloped areas. This effect is a direct result of all these man-made structures that we have around us, like the darker colored surfaces of our roads and our roofs that absorb more heat during the day. These high temperatures can pose a risk to human health, especially on days where it gets extremely hot like we've had recently, and also put a higher strain on our electricity grid as we use more energy to power our air conditioners. Well, a higher heat index is impossible to avoid in developed areas when you compare it to an undeveloped area. We can decrease the severity of our urban heat island effect by increasing our tree and vegetation coverage, adding parks in between to sort of break up continuous urban areas. And as the effects of climate change intensify, it's imperative that mitigating the urban heat island effect becomes more of a priority. And you can really see this really strongly in this map, which is based on data from the master plan. You see that the Cherry Capital Airport property where the runways are is astronomically hotter than the lake or the wetlands around Kids Creek, and even compared to downtown.
All right, so what did we find in all this? So in the end, we created a index map that is meant to highlight the areas of the city that are the most diverse in regards to natural features. And our index was calculated by determining the presence of certain natural features, including wetlands, floodplains, tree canopy, and city-owned trees, steep slopes between 15 and 25%, and steep slopes above 25%. And in doing so, areas with a higher number of natural features are ranked as having a high significance and are pictured in red, while areas with the lowest diversity of features are denoted low significance and are pictured in green. Recognizing where higher congregations of natural features already exist can help us better plan for a more sustainable future. While a large portion of the city falls within the low significance category, it is important to remember that protection and promotion of existing natural features anywhere is important regardless of concentration, especially in the face of a changing climate. And now to highlight some of the areas that lit up, the city's west side came up as very important. It contains the highest concentration of environmentally significant areas within the city limits, and this is primarily due to its position at the foot of rolling ridges and hills, which feed wetlands and streams that connect to Kids Creek and the lower lying areas. And while many of these environmental zones, including the Grand Traverse Commons and Silverbrook Acres, are already protected, there are others, including certain wetlands on the far west side, that are located within residential or commercial developments like the Munson Medical Center campus. And protecting and restoring these areas is crucial to preserve the ecological health of the city and region and to provide valuable resources for both residents and wildlife. Another area that lit up was where Mitchell Creek flows through the Cherry Capital Airport property east of 3 Mile Road. It serves as an important wildlife corridor connecting East Grand Traverse Bay to the forests and uplands of the adjacent East Bay Township. And as Traverse City continues to develop to the southeast and Cherry Capital Airport continues to see higher air traffic and expand accordingly, protecting this section of creek should continue to be a priority. Next, the Traverse Field Enterprise Place, the industrial exclave within Garfield Township, is also an area of high ecological significance. And due to its current and historical industrial character, there may already be significant environmental degradation, particularly in the sensitive watersheds, which are themselves are part of the Mitchell Creek watershed. Despite whatever damages have been done, it is never too late to rehabilitate our waterways and watersheds, as with the Kids Creek Restoration Project, which will have favorable effects on the quality of our ecosystem. And finally, the base of the Old Mission Peninsula also lit up. And although it is largely built out, it too is host to a number of significant environmental features. Many of these exist on private property and rely on the care and consideration of those who already live on the land. And as mentioned earlier in the presentation, features such as tree canopy and vegetation play an important role in protecting public health and go beyond the parcel they are located on. And we linked to the city's sustainability page for those who have questions regarding how to better care for and understand the natural features on your parcel. And to bring it all back together, we created an interactive web map, if it loads. Here we go. So we created this interactive web map that features not just the interactive index map that we created, but it also, you're able to toggle on and off features such as parks, trails, water bodies, wetlands, and you can play around, see how these play together, and figure out what corridors may be of future importance. And yeah, we figured that'd be a valuable resource.
Thank you.
Yes, amazing job.
Great work.
Well, thank you
I-
guys. I just want to real quick thank on that. I forgot to say at the beginning that they had wanted me to say you could ask questions at any point, so we can take those questions now. But I just want to commend the three of you for your ability to just jump into this project without intimidation, your technical prowess that you displayed with your understanding of GIS in such a quick time, as well as the intersection between urban and environmental characteristics of our community. Ted and Olivia will be leaving us on Friday, and Cole will be leaving us next week on Friday. So it's been a real pleasure to have you this summer in our department. You've brought a lot of energy and attitude, positive attitude that we've enjoyed. And even our most routine staff member has loved having you guys outside his door and is going to miss you guys. So again, thank you for the time and your service to our city. Again, Cole will be here one more week, and when I've asked about their career aspirations, Cole has made it very clear that he wants Dave's job and my job. So we might see Cole around for a little more in the future. So again, thank you to the three of you, and I'll hand it back to the chair.
Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Well, so I was just going to commend you all. This is amazing. And I also have a draft going to the Riparian Buffer Committee. Can I hit send, Leslie? I was just waiting. I think this is something they're really going to love.
Yeah.
Most of them are technically able to I'm going to move past what I just said, but I think they'll really like the interactive parts. And I think going into the conversation we're going to have this week would be really something good for them to spend a couple minutes just playing around with.
Yeah.
It'll be really helpful when we're trying to envision those things and those spaces in our head, but can't. We forgot about a tributary on this side of town, or we forgot about the stretch of, Mitch would never forget about a part of Kids Creek, but just saying it will be really helpful for me. So I'm going to hit send on my email.
I think that's great. Anybody else? Shay.
What's the most interesting thing you guys learned doing this process? Technically, naturally?
We learned a lot about soils that we did
Way
not
too
bargain
much about
for
soils,
going
arguably.
in.
took soil science?
My 2 semesters of college geology did not prepare me for the intricacies of northern Michigan soil data.
But yeah, if you guys have any questions about soils, we might be
We're-
the city's experts from now on.
I've got a lot of detailed questions, but my biggest question, now that we're at the end, and I didn't ask a dozen questions constantly throughout, is this is a great resource, and I appreciate that a lot of the data layers go beyond the city limits. However, our jurisdiction is just within the city limits. On the west side, which you did highlight, has the highest concentration of sensitive habitats. the Watershed Center does have a unified plan for the Kids Creek watershed, so they are able to coordinate things that are happening in the city, things that are happening in Garfield Township, things that are happening with private partners like Munson or Meyer. But I would like this to be shared and have productive discussions with the adjacent townships, because you did highlight, for example, sensitive steep slope and wetland areas in the border with Elmwood Township, and in the Mitchell Creek watershed, there are areas of red and yellow that go right up to the city's limits, and I don't see a future plan for currently for development of those in East Bay Township, but they are out of our zoning map, so I think East Bay Township would find it very useful, and it could be part of regional planning.
Yeah, something that we really ran into with this project is that, you know, the city is at the bottom of all of the you know, water bodies that start outside the city, and so we ultimately, you know, without that regional coordination, we don't get to control our own destiny as much as we would maybe like, especially when it comes to, in particular, things like flooding. You know, the bulk of, if a flood were to happen in the city, it would start outside of the city and would come into the city. And so it's a question of what can we do to make ourselves resilient? How can we look internally and address our natural features, which was really the focus of this report. But it's very important, as you say, to remember that, you know, all of these features continue outside the city's borders. They don't just, you know, cut off right at the city limit line. They continue out in all directions.
Is there any public comment on the natural features inventory? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. Yes.
Thank you. I'm curious, you've created this wonderful trove of data for us to use. You're probably the three people who understand it most deeply at this point. If there were one policy priority that you would suggest that city leadership should be exploring immediately based on the data that you've created, what would it be? Olivia?
Yeah, sure. I know we have the riparian buffer conversation coming up, so I would definitely say that's one of the most important things that we could focus on and that this kind of project kind of lends itself to. While we were discussing our findings, we were kind of thinking of things like zoning overlay maps that could be used to protect our natural features.
Now, is there any public comment on the natural features inventory? Okay. Thank you all very much for your hard work. It's just amazing. Ted, I cannot believe you're graduating. That just blows my mind.
Thank you.
They grew up so fast.
I can't either.
That seems like yesterday you went off to college. Jeez. Okay, let's move on to new business, 7B. Consideration of site plan review application 25 SPR01 submitted by Great Lakes Capital to construct a 137-room hotel with 67 underground parking spaces and customary accessory uses to be located at 124 West Front Street. Mr. Winter.
Yes, thank you. Bear with me one second as I get situated here. All right, so yes, as the agenda item indicates, this is a proposed hotel, approximately 137 rooms with, I know it says 67. I was noted today, right before the meeting, it's actually 68 underground parking spaces located obviously below grade. This will be located at 124 West Front Street. Some of you who were around maybe 5 years ago may recall that this received a site plan approval previously in conjunction with 309 West Front. They were the same developer. They're both to be residential. 309 West Front got built. Variety of reasons, the residential component at 124 West Front did not get built, and they have since decided to pursue a hotel at that site. Even before that, I was talking to Commissioner McGillivray recently on the fact that I think this is the fourth proposal now 3 of which have been previously approved for the infamous pit that we have on the west end. So I think there is, at least on the staff side, some enthusiasm that some traction is occurring on this property. So the building has a very tall first floor, you may notice, approximately 24 feet. Part of that is, at one point, the west side, the building cantilevers over the ground there, and there is some light and power equipment that they have permission to do that to, but they had to have a certain level of height of clearance so they could get a truck in there and a possible crane to ever pick that equipment up. So that is why you see that, one of the reasons why it has such a high height there. The slope of the lot drops away from Front Street. So the back side of the building, the parking that is underground would be visible. So there will be cutouts in there in case the river ever floods. It's very similar to the design that they did at 309 West Front, because again, same developer, and it is a similar floodplain situation there. But that is permissible in that location. The parking underground will be valet parking, so the customers will not be navigating that. They will pull into the drop-off location, which is pretty customary for hotels, where they'll be outside the right-of-way to unload, and then an attendant will take their vehicle to a parking location. So it does mention that there are some accessory uses that you'll customarily find within a hotel. It will have a restaurant, a bar, a cafe, and I believe you would call conference center or conference amenities within it. There will also be outdoor seating, as you notice on the renderings in the site plan. And I think that basically sums it up. There were some conditions that you will see in the recommended motion at the end, and these are ones that came out of our multiple meetings that we had with the design team. So we had all the staff design departments involved in this. So I'll just kind of go over them now in case there's any questions. And then I'll hand it over to the applicant who has the plans up to kind of talk through them and answer questions as well. So as customary with street or projects located within the DDA, we typically have them coordinate with the DDA on the streetscaping. This will include the location of street trees, the snow melt system, first floor location of a bike and mobility hub as discussed by the applicant. They will work with the parking services director to reinstall any parking related infrastructure that needs to be removed along that section of the street for the construction period, and the replacement of that will be borne by the developer. Same thing with Traverse City Light and Power as it relates to any street light poles. This is a very, very constrained site for construction, as we discussed in our design team meetings. There is no alley. You can't access the property from the rear side, and there's private property on the west, and then a public walkway, east, and a public walkway on the west. As staff, we'll have to be coordinating the right-of-way permits, because I'm sure most of you are aware there's another construction project going on the other side of the street right now at the corner of Front and Pine. So we have to maintain access through that corridor as much as possible. The next condition is that the applicant will continue to work with engineering, utilities, and light and power on all the necessary utility extensions. Again, projects have been approved here. I do understand, talking to engineering, that the ground is quite contaminated at this site. That mentions it in the staff report. You can even see it on the site plan. There's a whole series of monitoring wells along the waterfront. So ground storm infiltration can't occur at this site. That threatens the aquifer, and it would potentially push that pollution not just into the groundwater, but then seep out into the river and out into the lake. So stormwater will go through a aqua swirl system that was installed by the city in that location as a district stormwater catchment area, because it's so contaminated. The city knew that it wouldn't be able to be developed without piping the stormwater through that system, and so therefore they put a treatment device on there to address some of that. The next one, and so speaking of that, all the stormwater ordinances are met. The 3 parcels will be combined as one, that the fire prevention ordinance and the International Fire Code will be met. Where the driveway access, West Front Street, equipment, pavement markings will need to be installed as approved by the city engineer to inform the driver and warn pedestrians when a motor vehicle is about to cross the sidewalk. The city will require confirmation from Eagle that the proposed encroachments in the floodplain will not increase flood levels within the community during the occurrence of a flood-based discharge. The primary entrance along West Front Street shall be set back a minimum of 4 feet from the property line, A third pedestrian entrance shall be added to the south elevation along West Front, and all deliveries between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Will be prohibited from occurring within the right-of-way. So they would have to pull it into the building if it's during that time. And this is just noticing that there is no alley to do deliveries, and we can't be obstructing the right-of-way in this location. So those are the conditions recommended by staff that were generated through the collaborative review process. The staff report that you have in there does highlight, as we've tried to do consistently, all the standards for site plan review. We have the applicant submit their responses to all those standards. They've been incorporated, and then staff was able to provide staff-specific responses as well. Sitting with the attorney, we looked at the standards and determined which staff review forms needed to be distributed to which departments. So those based on the standards were Department of Municipal Utilities, Light and Power, and the Fire Department, all three of which have submitted their documents enclosed in your packet and have supported this project at this point. So with that, I will hand it over to Dusty Christensen, who is here from Mansfield Land Use Consultants. Did I say that right? Okay. And he will be presenting the plans for you and answering any questions you have.
Good evening. As Sean mentioned, my name is Dusty Christensen. I'm with Mansfield Land Use Consultants. We've done the site planning and civil engineering for the application and the proposed project that you have in front of you tonight. I'm here tonight on behalf of Great Lakes Capital, who is the property owner and developer. As Sean also mentioned, they had the previous project that was approved by the Planning Commission in 2020. And have kind of circled back a number of times actually in an effort to make something happen on this site, and have decided that a hotel is the direction that they'd like to proceed. I'm trying to remember how to go into full screen mode on my PDF.
Try Control L.
Control L. Perfect, thank you. That's better. I am going to kind of cherry pick some drawing sheets out of both the site plan set and the architectural set. Obviously, you've all had those in your packet and had a chance to review them. I'll try to hit the high points on the proposed development, and then I'd rather talk with you than at you. So we'll get into any questions that you might have. But I can't recall if Sean mentioned it during his intro. This project is a use by right in the C4B district. Proposed hotel with accessory uses. We do have 137 guest rooms, a restaurant, a cafe, a relatively small conference area, and then a bar, which is on the 4th floor, one of the guest room floors of the hotel. The site itself is shown here on this plan. Obviously, it's bound by Front Street on the south side, the pedestrian way to the crossing over the river on the west side, the Record Eagle building on the east, and then the river on the north itself. I'm going to skip forward to, this is it. So this is our street level site plan. And on the south or east corner of the building, you'll notice the drop-off and valet area for the hotel that was mentioned in the introduction, as well as the ramp that leads down to the basement parking deck level. And this is something that actually took up a large portion of our time and brain power during the design process, because the folks that do the hotel consultant and hotel management really need a place for folks to be able to park their car, get the bags out, get themselves oriented, and get themselves into the hotel to check in. And obviously, we can't do that in the street right of way. You know, the parking spaces are metered and frequently full. We can't do that in the roadway itself. And so we went through a number of iterations on how to accomplish this on site, and ultimately decided to do that within the footprint of the building. There's a one-way drive lane with the, I don't know if, oh good, my cursor shows up. with the entry drive here off Front Street that loops through the building, and then vehicles can either continue down the ramp to the parking level or back out onto Front Street. We have 3 or 4 loading spaces shown, 3 actually, I believe, with the valet being the other, the drop-off space being the other. And then basically a one-way, one-lane lane through that drop-off area into the building. The reason that we had the entry drive central to the building and the exit to the east is that when the when the vehicles go down with the valet folks, if we had the circulation in the opposite direction, the valet vehicles would have to exit onto Front Street and then go around the entire block to then get down the ramp. The remainder of the facade along Front Street is essentially the hotel lobby, which opens up into the restaurant and bar further into the building, and then a cafe space on the west side of the building that is essentially a coffee shop and bakery that serves not just the guests of the hotel, but the surrounding community, folks who are on Front Street, the neighborhood, et cetera. And then that cantilevered portion of the building over the top of the TC Light and Power equipment is on the very west side. It serves to provide some additional seating space for the cafe. But again, we have essentially 24 feet of clearance above that, so that Light and Power can get a truck and equipment up there to service their lines, and a vault that has some other equipment in it. This is,
Before we move on to
Oh, yeah.
soon, the valet drive down in,
Mhm.
is that 2 lanes?
yes, so there's a one lane down, one lane back up. And that, I think that's better illustrated on this next plan here. You can see our little circulation arrows.
Oh, great.
But yes, it is 2 lane, one down and one up. And while we're on the topic of the vehicular circulation, I'll note that we're proposing, at the recommendation of staff during our meetings with them, some bump outs where we're actually bumping out the curb line into the street. We're going to maintain the full width of the existing bike lane, but we do lose some on-street parking. And the purpose for that is to give ourselves, I'm going to jump back one sheet here, some little landing areas in front of our drive penetrations into the building. So most critically, when a vehicle is exiting the ramp or the valet lane, they can get the nose of that car through the facade of the building and have some visibility. We have planting areas on either side, and then we push the actual sidewalk surface away from the building so that we're slowing cars down, giving them a chance to creep out and see pedestrians before they have to make a decision to turn out onto the street. And we've done that at both drive access points off of Front Street.
You have enough space right now to preserve the bike lane, but it does look a little pinched. Would this design be kept the same if at the conclusion of the two-way State Street project, there is the removal of the essentially closed-off area across Front Street immediately to the west?
I think so. You know, the circulation within the building would probably remain the same. It makes the most sense to have a dedicated entry point where folks are entering the drive, seeing where they need to be, getting into one of those loading spaces, doing what they need to do, and then having their car valet parked for them. Are you specifically referring to the bump outs themselves or just the circulation pattern?
Just circulation in general.
Yeah, I think the circulation pattern would remain the same, and I think the bump outs are beneficial regardless of traffic direction on Front Street.
And I'll add one thing. You mentioned the pinched bike lane. That did come up in design team, and they committed to maintaining the width of the bike lane as existing when they construct.
Yeah, so-
Question.
Sure.
So I'm wondering about deliveries, and understand you're saying deliveries between 8 in the morning and 8 at night must be inside that area. So can you tell me, can a beer truck actually make that turn? Can delivery, I mean, we're not talking about FedEx vehicles, we're talking about, you know, trucks. Yeah,
Yeah.
Linens, all these guys, can they actually make Has anybody looked and see whether or not they can actually make the turn to get in there?
Well, the answer to that is no. So big trucks will not be entering either of the driveways onto the site. So any delivery that requires a large semi or, say, trash pickup, something like that, is going to occur in the street during those off hours. Similar to the way that trash collection works at other places in the city where there are roller dumpsters that are internal to the site. You know, the folks from the waste hauling company show up very early in the morning. The dumpsters are rolled out, put into the truck, and then rolled back. It's a management issue, and all deliveries are going to have to take place. I think in Sean's condition, we note between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. is when those would take place out in the street. Based on our discussions with the management team, it sounds like they're going to be planning to have most of their deliveries happen prior to 6 a.m.
Great.
Do we have other locations in the city where this type of restriction also exists?
No, as far as the drop-off time and stuff? No, and this was a recommendation from the parking services director. We have areas where the same problem exists, and that's where the recommendation came in. So this is mostly on the other end towards East Front, so think about the State Theater. We don't have any alley access on that block on the north side. Those buildings are already there and operating, so it's hard to find that solution now. So this is our time to condition that approval on it. And we're just trying to avoid some of the situations that we have occurring on the other end where the delivery truck drivers are there at 11 a.m. and they have no choice but to shut down the lane to take their deliveries out because there is no loading zone or unloading zone. So that is why this was recommended, especially considering that, you know, as you get just to the west of that valet drive, it chokes down to one lane because of the bump out. So if you have a delivery vehicle, then you've blocked up Front Street and imposed traffic. So that's why that condition was put on there. And again, those are up to you guys. You know, it's the motion that you guys make. If you don't think that is a legitimate condition, you can remove it.
No, I'm just wondering how it's going to be enforced. I mean, there's, even when there's alleys, you've got delivery trucks blocking lanes through down Front Street all the time. You know, rugs, linens, UPS, FedEx.
Yeah.
You know, they do it all the time. They don't use the alleys, they just stop in the street, block traffic.
Yeah, and so typically obstructing a travel lane is enforced by the police department. So that would probably be something that needs to be put on Officer Culver's radar. He's the downtown beat police officer. Keep an eye on that. And we've reached out with him before, and he's talked with delivery companies that have been problematic.
But putting this as a condition of the development at least clarifies that issue, whereas we have found from the other businesses that they need to operate deliveries during that area, not because of any legal requirement, but just for practical concerns.
Yeah, and by making it a condition of approval, if they do it, not only is it a violation of the motor vehicle code, but now it's a violation of the zoning ordinance because it's not consistent with the site plan approval, and then we can send our code enforcement officer out there and deal with it. So it gives us a little extra, enforcement opportunities.
If I looked at this plan and that site and thought there was another viable option, I would say, no, or not, this is unacceptable. And I understand that, but I look at your, you need ramp length, and you only have one deep area to do it. And it's pretty much, it's not gonna go anywhere else, so,
Yeah, and
at least it addresses the car issue, so.
it's certainly a management issue, if not headache, for the folks that are going to be operating this facility, and they're well aware of it. And frankly, my impression of the handling of deliveries, and I think where their determination to have those happen really early morning comes from the fact that there isn't a whole lot of room even internal to the building. So once whatever's being delivered gets out of the truck, there's not a great way to get it where it needs to go within the building without having it be in the way or in front of a lot of guests. And that
You're
is,
going through the front door.
exactly, and, or near enough to it, right? And I don't know much about managing hotels, but I understand that you don't want them to see the trash or the deliveries when they're staying there. So I think there's a recognition that, keeping deliveries to the off hours and during those quiet times on the street at least is preferable. Are there any other questions? Or should I keep moving? Yes.
I'm interested, I believe right now along that stretch of West Front, there are 9 parallel parking spots and a fairly well-used sidewalk and a bus stop right up at the stop sign at Front and Pine. And I just wondered which of those, how many parking spots will be lost? Will the width of the sidewalk be maintained? And is there impact on the bus stop?
The bus stop, I am not 100% on. I believe it's remaining. We lose 5 parallel parking spaces on Front Street. So 9 currently exist across the front of the property. We have 4 on the plans, primarily due to the driveways and the bump outs. If the bump outs themselves probably lost a couple of extra parking spaces, but for safety purposes, in our discussions with staff, we felt those were needed. And the sidewalk width is going to remain at 8 feet. It's just going to be bumped out along that bump out. So unfortunately, we lost a few parking spaces, but are trying to maintain everything else as best we can.
And the plan for parking below the building, will there be any self-park? It's all valet parking?
Nope, it's all valet.
Okay.
And it's a private parking lot dedicated to the guests staying at the hotel. And I think the thought is every car is going to get parked by somebody who knows their way in and out of that garage really well.
And the plan for overflow parking, the discrepancy between the number of
Exactly.
spots and the
So
number of rooms?
That's a good question. And so the discussion that's been held and with the owner and the folks that are going to be managing the facility have talked about acquiring spaces within city decks or city lots as overflow.
For instance, Old Town
Mhm.
parking deck?
And so it would be, somebody would be running, basically. There'd be like they do in hotels in bigger cities where they don't have on-site parking.
Yeah.
They have valet in an adjacent deck or a nearby deck, and somebody gets a workout running to get cars. But that's the plan right now.
And
Yeah.
last question about parking. Snow season
Mhm.
and snow removal, impact of snow plowing and accessibility to plows and so forth?
So one of the reasons that we bumped originally the bump outs were pushed out so that the face of the curb was the edge of the bike lane. And after discussing that with staff, we've pushed those bump outs back towards the building a little bit so that the front of the gutter pan is on the bike lane. And so that plowable asphalt surface doesn't have any potential obstructions with curbing or anything like that. We're also going to modify the radii that are shown on the plan to better accommodate the city's vehicles that they use for clearing out parking spaces and alleys. And then, the city crews always do a great job of getting the windrows and the piles of snow out of the way once they create them. Sidewalks are going to be heated, and then obviously we'll have the paved surfaces within the building, so the valet drop-off and the ramp are covered. So really the only snow that we'll end up with in those places will be coming off of vehicles as they enter and exit. Take care of that with shovels and some trench drains.
And I would say in the downtown environment, we don't actually plow the streets like we do in the neighborhoods. They wait till night and they bring in equipment and push it all to the center. So to Dusty's point, we're not running plows down it like we would typical streets and stuff. Has anyone ever stayed, I know because the Michigan Planning Conference is there, but the Amway Grand Plaza Hotel. So this design is a lot like that as far as you pull in for the drop off, then you leave. And I've stayed there a lot, and I give the tenant my car and I don't see it again. Like they take it to some undisclosed location and it always comes back fine, but I just have to put the trust in them. And I think in talking with the management team, that's kind of, again, I guess I want to reiterate that that's the story they've told us as well.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. The Amway, the way that the Amway's drop-off and valet system is set up underneath, on the street level, underneath a portion of the building is very comparable to what we're doing here. I have the elevations from the architectural plan pulled up. These again are in your packets, and I have some enlarged versions on the next couple of slides that I can show you, but generally speaking, the building itself, the long dimension of the building runs along Front Street. The elevation that you're seeing on the very bottom of the screen here is the Front Street elevation of the building. You'll see that little cutout that we discussed over the top of TC Light and Power's equipment there. So the guest rooms on the upper floors actually hang over that, and then that'll have some seating for the cafe, and it doesn't show up very well here, or isn't accurately represented, but there will be a ramp that provides access from street level up to that paved surface for TCLP to get a truck up there. The reason for that is that we've got about 2 feet of grade change from the east side of the building to the west. So our finished floor elevation, while it matches up really well on this east side, on the west side, it's about 2 feet higher than street level, making that little ramp cut necessary. This elevation in the center is the north elevation, so the river side of the building. Again, street level is up here. The site drops down to a level closer to that of the river. The parking level is all down here, and then those cutouts for flood control are on primarily the west side of the building. This is the east elevation. This little white void you see here is actually the Record Eagle building. That kind of shows how the Record Eagle building will butt up against the east side of this building. And then this is the west elevation, again with the seating area here, and then pedestrian connection through the west side out to the terrace on the back side of the building. And these enlargements just give a little bit more detail as to what the building will look like. And again, I'll note that you're likely familiar with the list of special requirements for buildings in the C4 districts. The architects for the project, Studio M, went to a lot of great depth to make sure that all of those standards were complied with, and according to what we've submitted and what staff reviewed, we comply with all the standards in the ordinance, not just for those special building requirements, but across the board. With that, I'd answer any questions that you have further. Yes, I see one right there. Sorry.
No problem, no problem. Specifically about the east and west elevations, there are significant portions that are blank. And I wondered if you could tell us about the reasoning for that. I noticed they are actually the street side, the front street side of the building seems to be the blank area. And so it will be very, very obvious to people traveling westbound on that one-way stretch of Front Street that there's a big old blank wall right there.
This right here is this one.
Hovering over the one-story Record Eagle building. Can you tell us the rationale for that?
I would have to verify with the architects, but my guess is that it is related to the internal workings of the hotel rooms on those portions of the building. So again, this is the second floor plan. The third and fourth floor plans are very similar. Down here across the bottom of the screen again is the Front Street side of the building. And on that west and east side, we have guest rooms, which have their windows, I guess, on the short side of the room. And then there's furniture and televisions and things like you would find on the long sides of a hotel room when you stay there that prevent the inclusion of windows on those sides of the rooms. On the east side, there are also some back of house storage, janitorial, et cetera, that typically don't have windows. So that's the rationale.
There's another element at play in that from the construction code and fire code, in that if your building goes up to the side property lines, you can't have windows. So those are the two portions you see without the windows are all the way to the property line. The part with the windows on the east and west elevation is pulled in, and that's because if another building got built next to it, you don't want fire to jump via window from one to the other. So in order to have windows there, they would have had to pull both of those walls back, I think 5 or 10 feet, which is why in our ordinance, we only require the window glazing on the front street side, the front facade.
And I can understand that for the east elevation. The west elevation abuts the pedestrian walkway, as I understand. And
But that's still a parcel and not a right-of-way, so by the construction code, you know, it's a property rather than right-of-way, so it applies to there as well. I will say, if it was to be built today, you would see that. That may be masked soon. We have a meeting tomorrow with someone interested in developing the JNS property, so that might actually create a visual barrier to even seeing that from Front Street, so.
Because that JNS property goes right up to that?
Well, there's a
Or there's
parcel
that
in between.
public right-of-way for
that's-
the bridge?
But it's not a right-of-way. It's
Okay.
a parcel that people walk on. So that's a distinguishing factor
Got
as
it.
far as the
Yeah,
construction
with the
code
lot
is if you're
split
up
for
against a
20
right-of-way or
feet.
if you're up against a property line, because the city could sell that
Sell the
property,
parcel.
someone could develop it, and so they have to make
Or
sure
the city
that
could sell the air rights to that property.
they
Yeah.
could do that too. Yep.
Okay.
So the code tries to think
got
about
it.
what could happen in the future.
And even in the short term, the Arts Commission is gearing up for a
That's
mural
what I was
festival.
gonna say.
This
Public art
would be
there.
a wonderful blank canvas if the hotel developer saw a particular mural artist that they felt matched their vision for the property and wanted to put some decoration.
I also thought that immediately.
Yeah. We strongly recommend public art.
I'll pass that on.
Okay.
seeing the relationship of the building to the sloping land, this is probably the right time to ask about building height. The figures I saw on the packet were 58 feet 2 inches from roof to land, and I wondered at what point is that measured? You said there's about a 2-foot slope involved.
Yeah, so that is measured from the mean height at street level, or mean grade at street level. And Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm going to start talking about what the ordinance says, and I might not be able to remember it exactly, but it's essentially you take average grade at street level to the height of the roof deck for a flat roof building, and that's where that 58 feet 2 inches comes from. In order to be sure, and maybe that's even at the east corner, I guess I'd have to measure it, but it's 58 2.
Yeah, so Dusty's correct. When we have a building with sloping grade, we'll take the east corner at the street and the west corner elevation, take that average, and that's the baseline, and we measure from that average to the top point. If it's a corner lot, then we take the 3 corners along the street, such as the Hannah and Lee building.
And that aligns with the outcome of the Anovo
Yep.
situation.
Yep, because that's, the Anovo situation was questioning what is the top of the building.
Right.
Less about the starting point of where you measure from. And so, yeah, so that is measured to the top of whatever you could stand on the roof. So whether, so not just steel deck, but insulation, membrane,
Insulation, et
pavers,
cetera.
anything above. So that's all counted in the building height.
And the height of the parapet?
It is just under 3 feet, 2 feet 10 inches, I believe.
And I have questions about the building exterior cladding. Is this a time for that?
I can try to answer them as best I can. I'm more on the zoning and site planning side than the architecture side, but
Okay, well,
I can take a stab.
Thank you. I noticed that in, I think it was condition 8 in our packet, calls for predominant building materials of traditional brick and stone, and that obviously the renderings reflect the use of a synthetic stucco, and with, I believe, brick along the river-facing lower level of the building, so I guess that would be the north side of the parking level. Why are we not requiring brick and stone here?
Can you explain, I'm trying to follow what spot again?
Well, in your write-up, condition
Page 9
8.
of
Yeah,
11.
page 6 of 11. Oh, I'm sorry.
Page 9.
Page 9, thank you, Mitch, calls for predominant building materials of traditional brick and stone. And I know we've been quite diligent in previous new construction, like the CVS pharmacy just down the street, that I'm sure that brick and stone aren't part of their typical building construction, and yet they accommodated our requirements in that area. And I wondered if that was a possibility to have, this would be the only synthetic stucco clad building on Front Street, correct?
I don't know if that is correct. I know down the building that used to have, across from the Hardy parking deck, has stucco on the front facade of it. The one just west of Morsels, I believe, on the upper floors.
I think it's important to distinguish also between the synthetic stucco and real stucco. I mean,
Well,
as
it's the
I
difference
understand
between
it.
the blue
May I
goat.
finish?
I mean,
As I understand it, the synthetic stucco has a distinctive plastic feel, and you know, when you tap it, it sounds hollow, as opposed to cement stucco, which is a much more solid material and doesn't have those characteristics. So I'm confused about why we're proposing a building of this significance with that particular cladding material.
Well, according to the standards in the zoning ordinance, I mean, that is something that you guys can discuss. It says, new buildings and additions of existing buildings, including parking structures, shall be constructed of durable materials, utilizing the predominant building materials of traditional brick and stone, or constructed of materials of comparable aesthetic value. So that's a judgment call that the Planning Commission can make. If you feel that it's not comparable, then that's something that needs to be identified.
Go ahead.
if this commission had at any time enforced that, in my time, going back 20 years, on any other building, I would say, let's do it. But we haven't. I mean, look at the building across the street or across the river. You know, it's synthetic siding. It's supposed to be in a warehouse district, and it looks like a cottage, or whatever they call that style. I mean, I don't see us using people using a ton of brick and stone. Some people do on some of the buildings. And there's a question, you have a legitimate question about, you know, is this enough? But I don't think the question of, I'm not going to tell someone to put cement stucco on their building instead of synthetic stucco. We talk about all sorts of things for projects, and every time we have these requirements and these standards, it raises the cost of projects. So if you want to use cement stucco, most likely you're going to it's going to cost more to apply because it's heavier. It's going to cost, I don't know if the product itself might be cheaper. But, you know, and then what I see in cement stucco is how well does it wear tends to chip. But, you know, that's again, it's a subjective judgment call. But I think it's going to be hard to fix that or address that. I'm not sure, where is the brick?
Down the riverside.
It's on the
First floor,
riverside in the
it's a-
parking level.
And the central column above the entrance.
And if I may clarify, I'm not proposing traditional stucco. I frankly don't think that traditional stucco relates to the vernacular or traditional exterior materials in this community. And I am sensitive to the fact that neither does synthetic stucco.
You know, again, I've gone down this road before, and I voted against projects because I did not feel they were anywhere in this, and I have to agree, there's not much stone on this. The building across the street is the old Gordy Fraser building. It's got, that's some sort of like stone embedded stucco.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I think
mean,
it's concrete stucco, maybe.
yeah,
Like
it
an
could be.
aggregate, like
Yeah.
a poured
Yeah.
aggregate.
And I don't know what's going into the building next to that. Is that going to be stone or brick?
I
I
think
just
it-
don't know.
I think it's stamped brick, because they just did that on State Street also, where I
The
think
thin
it's
brick,
that
yeah.
cement, but then they're putting the painting of the brick on it. I think
Yeah.
that's been happening a lot.
A lot of fake brick. I question whether or not it's,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if there's something we wanted to review, I think it's our site plan standards for some of this stuff and actually go back, and see whether it's still practical or not, and do a walking tour. But no, I understand it's a legitimate question. I'm just saying personally, I can't vote against it because when I voted against the past, I've always lost. So I'm just.
Maybe things have changed.
Well, maybe they have, but I don't think it's fair to new applicants when we've ignored those for past applicants. And then I
think my
personally
point
think.
about CVS is that we apparently haven't ignored it for previous applicants.
I can
They're-
find other CVSs in other communities that have brick facades, so it does seem to be part of their.
Would you send me one of those?
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I guess it's a matter of definition and interpretation of definition. So as Sean mentioned, the ordinance states that the building facade shall be constructed of a material comparable in aesthetic value, right? So it is a subjective decision on your part as the planning commission. And does comparable mean it has to, test at the same hardness as another building material? Does it have to accomplish the same aesthetic goals? And how do you measure that, right? So what's proposed here has a texture and a color that is comparable to natural stone products. They could do a brick veneer across the entire facade that matches these colors exactly. And I would say this is comparable to that.
Texture?
It's your decision, though. And it's how granular do you want to get with your definition of comparable aesthetic value in the ordinance?
They could
And to Commissioner McGillivary's point, has it been enforced in the past? And frankly, do you as a planning commission want to shoehorn every building into having brown brick on it? A little variation in architectural character across the city, in my opinion, isn't necessarily a bad thing.
The other thing, and I agree with Brian that I think maybe reviewing some of those standards at some point would be a good idea, but there's also like an intersection of different values. At the same time, the city is pretty strongly committed to carbon neutrality, reducing its carbon footprint. There isn't a more carbon-intensive building product really than brick. You have to fire it all. It creates so much CO2. So you got to weigh those things as, we're not having, that deep discussion today, but just kind of think about that. What balance do you want to draw?
This is a whole petroleum-based product system,
It is.
all of it.
It's plastic.
The synthetic,
It's 2 inches of polystyrene insulation with some frosting on it.
so that's interesting too. Is it as durable? I mean, I'm not an expert on that. I think
There have been water infiltration issues with it that I think have been mostly resolved.
so, I mean, that's a legitimate question. What you're saying is it's basically styrofoam with a hard
crossing,
Painted, yeah.
At least at street level, you know, that a bike handle can punch a hole in it.
It's a legitimate concern, especially, like I said, at street level.
Shopping cart, well, there's probably not shopping carts, but
Luggage cart.
scooter, luggage.
So I have been around for a couple of iterations of this property. At least one, maybe just the one, but it feels like it was a very long time ago. I like this. I think it contributes to a lot of the many stories and like webs that we are working under right now. If we have another boutique hotel, does that mean that that helps increase our housing stock because short-term rentals are going to be less wanted? So like, I love this. I think it's great. I think you can, I'm not an expert. You can make a decision on your outside materials when and whenever. And you have to go through so many stringent requirements and building permits. Like, that is not my purview, and I don't care. I think I like the change in materials. I have a very peculiar building that I live in compared to the rest of the buildings on the street. So I just really like that. I think it makes for a creative neighborhood. So I would really love to make a motion. Great. Did you already do it?
No.
Oh.
Typically, you would make your motion prior to public comment.
Yeah, I thought we were, yeah.
Okay.
I had already assumed you opened the public comment like we did for the other two, so I'm
No, not yet.
so sorry. I will wait.
No, make your motion.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay, it's gonna be long. I have to read all the bullet points, right?
Oh, does she have to read all the bullet points?
1 through 12? Yeah, that's
No,
what
okay.
I thought. Okay. I move that the staff report for site plan review application 25 SPR01 be adopted to establish a finding of fact, and that the application submitted by Great Lakes Capital to construct a 4-story, 137 guest room hotel with accessory uses at 124 West Front Street be approved with the following conditions. I'm never going to make it. The applicant, 1, the applicant will work in collaboration with the Downtown Development Authority, DDA, on developing and installing new public streetscape for the full width of the property to include, but is not limited to, street trees, snow melt system, and a first floor location for a bike mobility hub as discussed with the applicant. 2, the applicant will work with Parking Services Director on reinstallation of any parking-related infrastructure removed or disturbed during construction, with purchase and installation costs to be borne by the developer. 3, the applicant will work with Traverse City Light and Power on appropriate reinstallation of any street lighting removed or disturbed during construction, with purchase and installation costs to be borne by the developer. 4, the applicant will continue to work with city engineering, municipal utilities, and Traverse City Light and Power on utility extensions and service lines that satisfy all local, state, and federal regulations. 5, the stormwater requirements outlined in the city ordinance chapter 1068 are met. 6, the 3 parcels shall be combined as one. 7, all of the requirements of the City of Traverse City Fire Prevention Ordinance and International Fire Code are met. 8, where driveways access West Front Street, equipment pavement markings will need to be installed as approved by the city engineer to inform the driver and warn pedestrians when a motor vehicle is about to cross the sidewalk. 9, the city will require confirmation from Eagle that the proposed encroachments in the floodplain will not increase flood levels within the community during the concurrence of a flood-based discharge. 10, the primary entrances along West Front Street shall be set back a minimum of 4 feet from the property line. 11, a 3rd pedestrian entrance shall be added to the south elevation along West Front Street. And 12, all deliveries between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. shall be prohibited from being loaded and unloaded from the right-of-way and shall occur internal to the building in the valet drop-off pickup location.
Second.
Is there any public comment? Seeing none.
I have many more questions.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm looking at the elevations, and that doesn't look like stucco on the
Yes,
ground
I
floor.
did.
If
Yeah.
you're here,
Yes?
sorry.
Sorry, I messed up the whole order.
Please state your name and address.
Judy Nelson, 429 Garfield Avenue. I just really have one question, which I can't find or the answer to in this reams of paper. And that is, what is the height of the building to the top of the roof? Now, I know it shows 58 feet 2 inches to the roof deck, but, and Sean is correct in describing the Innovo situation where it was similarly, let's say 58 feet, but by the time they added insulation and brick and asphalt and pavers, etc., it was over 60 feet. So one of the concerns that you have to have in this community is what's the top of the roof. Your zoning ordinance requires that it be measured to the top of the roof, and both the Circuit Court and the Court of Appeals said the same thing. So that's my question for Great Lakes Capital, and I can't find the answer here. Thank you. I guess I would say that if it's more than 60 feet, then it has to go for a vote. If it's less than 60 feet, then you can approve it tonight. So, thank you. Thank you.
Well, we can get to the height after I refinish my other question.
Okay.
Again, is that stucco? Because it doesn't look like stucco. What is, I mean, it's not traditional stucco. It looks like, almost like bricks, but maybe it's just a fake stucco brick. I don't know.
You're getting a little bit out of my area of expertise, but I will do my best. So the EFIS product is essentially a synthetic stucco-like material that aims to replicate a stucco finish. And so the goal is to have a uniform color and texture across the wall surface itself. You can apply essentially faux jointing to give it patterns as well. And I'm not a building material guy, and I'm not the architect. I can't answer that, but it's a faux stucco product or a synthetic stucco-like product that gives a similar effect.
Okay, moving off the stucco stuff. I'm going to go to the river. What are you doing along the riverbank? I mean, it doesn't show anything on the plans that indicates anything's happening on the riverbank.
Mm-hmm.
There's no landscaping plan included.
I know. So what's going on the riverbank?
At this point, there is a planting plan that's being created. We don't have it yet. The space between the back garage wall and the riverbank will be planted with native material.
So all the existing vegetation and trees along the river will be removed?
I don't know if they've decided to remove anything that's there. The last time I was on site was, I guess it was last fall at this point, and the existing vegetation along the riverbank isn't in the greatest shape. It's essentially, the site had been scrape cleaned during some of the environmental remediation that had been done and had just been left to grow up. And so there's some relatively scraggly volunteer vegetation right along the riverbank itself. The remainder of the property is essentially turf grass that's been left to sit because they reseeded after they did their remediation work. I don't know what they're going to keep and what they're going to replace.
Question for staff. Isn't the landscaping plan, especially along the waterfront, that's in no part of our site plan review? We have no, it's not something we can consider at all?
No, there is a 10-foot setback from the river, so they're not building in that, and they're not allowed to remove trees in that setback unless they are invasive, as noted by a certified arborist, or dead or dying, in which case, if they are removed under those conditions, the stumps and roots have to stay in place, and they have to plant 2 trees for every 1 tree that gets cut out under those conditions. Now, you'll notice in the conditions in the suggested motion that Commissioner Detturi read was the one about satisfying the stormwater ordinance. And the engineering department asked to put that one in there. Obviously, they have to, but there was a conversation at the last design team meeting. Dusty was not at that one. I think he was helping his family on the farm. But we had other representatives there. And it's likely that the stormwater engineer is going to require some sort of bioswale right along the edge of the building there in case there is any kind of runoff from the parking lot. It's enclosed, so there's no rain, there's no stormwater runoff generating out of there. But that would just be an improvement, and that would be up to the engineering department to require under their ordinance.
But we don't require a landscape plan under site plan review.
We do for the land use permit. So again, if the planning commission was to approve the site plan, that doesn't mean that they can start construction. It doesn't mean that they'll meet, because they still have to get all their right-of-way permits, utility permits, land use permit, which includes having the landscape plan, the photometric plan. Those are the levels of details that we review internally once the site plan is done. So typically, when you get a site plan, they're at about 40% to full construction set. Once the site plan's approved, then they finish the plans under that approval and then come in for their permits. And that's when we double check for all that stuff.
Okay, so to answer my question, we don't review the landscape plan.
You do
And
not,
we've got
no.
that's not something that's reviewed by the planning commission.
Correct.
Okay.
We approve that through the issuance of our land use plan. Same with the photometrics.
If I may, on the subject of trees, I think all of the planning commissioners received a letter from the Watershed Center yesterday cautioning about impact on the riverfront and the river itself and the rest of our water resources. I made a very brief site visit, and there is at least 1 and possibly 2 black willow trees overshading the river in that area of significant size. And I noted that the planning director has the option to request a tree inventory for this site, and I would like to see staff request that inventory formally so that we can answer the questions that Mr. McGillivray has raised about what vegetation is actually there.
Commissioner Anderson, can you estimate whether or not those trees are within the 10-foot buffer on the river?
They are.
Yes, they are. As far as I could tell, they were hanging over the river, maybe several feet from the bank itself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much, and so I was curious about that too. That's why it wasn't requested, especially because of along the waterfront. I can see that, the area that they're actually doing construction in, there's nothing that's, there's not really any vegetation in there. I mean, it's like I said, it's just scrub. It used to be, when they first did it, it was a lawn, and after that, it just became a urban city field of rubble and weeds.
Shrubberies growing up next to the
So,
Record Eagle building.
to Commissioner Anderson's point, the landscape plan requires existing tree inventory and what trees will be cut down and what ones. So that's all handled after site plan review as part of the land use permit process. So we will have that. We'll have a species list of every plant that they will provide on the site, its location, its quantity, as well as what vegetation is retained. So that's all laid out in the zoning ordinance already.
Okay.
And it is not ultimately up to us to review at this time. It will be later on, but I am heartened to hear that that will be reviewed. I paddled the Boardman River, including this stretch, both upstream and downstream this afternoon. And most of the trees, well, all the trees are within that 10-foot zone. They are in the bank. Some of them are true, not in the best of health. There's a black willow tree, a black locust tree, so technically invasive, depending on who you ask, that is not vertical, but literally horizontal to the water, and means that at that point I need to be a little careful how I'm coming out from under the pedestrian bridge, that I can't be too far to the south because there's a tree hanging over half the river. So yes, it is providing some habitat, but I can see a compelling case to remove all but the base 5 feet or so of that tree. But the trees that are there are helping to stabilize what would otherwise be a bank prone to erosion. One thing that I would like to see, and we can't put this on as a condition, but just as this place goes from a vacant lot to a parcel that is used, I would like to see either 1 or 2 places that are built as access points to the river. This is, during the fall fishing season, perhaps the busiest stretch of river for salmon fishing. You cannot fish for salmon the other side of the pedestrian bridge, so this is the highest you can fish, close to the weir. And if there are 1 or 2 access points, then that's the place where fishermen will go down. If there aren't anything, then fishermen will go down at a broad range of places, which will lead to overall greater levels of erosion, stream bank instability, and more trash in terms of, for lack of other things, line and lures in the tree branches.
I'll make sure to pass that along.
Thank you.
Just one more question. I understood from the packet that given the frontage along West Front Street, that ordinarily there would be 9 street trees allocated across that stretch, and instead of that, there will only be 4 and $2,700 paid into the tree fund. And I just wanted to ask if there's any way to increase the number of street trees in that stretch.
Yeah, well, we were going to coordinate with the streets department and the city forester to install street trees in accordance with the specifications for streetscape standards along that section of Front Street.
And as I read it, perhaps I read it wrong, that would include 9 street trees across the front of this piece of property. But instead of that, you're opting for 4 street trees plus a payment of $2,700 for the 5 unplanted trees.
When we get into the discussion with TDA for sidewalk improvements, sidewalk heating, and the city staff for the streetscape improvements, we'll make sure that we hit the number of street trees that are required within the specifications for streetscape.
Thank you.
There are currently 5 street trees.
Yeah.
Currently 5, yes.
I think he was saying there's currently 5 in existence today.
Right, but there are 9 per our goals for street trees, but you have the option to buy out a certain number, and
Well,
it looks like
Well,
we are
The buyout is for
not
canopy coverage
planting.
over the entire parcel.
Yeah,
So
not
I'm
the street
sorry.
trees.
It's a separate issue from street trees.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So that 9, I think you're speaking to, Jackie, is the canopy coverage. So you get 500 square feet, I think it is, per
Right.
new tree, and so 9 gives you the 10% of the lot area. As is often the case that we run into downtown, you're allowed to do 100% lot coverage, so oftentimes they'll pay into the tree fund as that option. Now, I will say, as a practice, so you guys know, we've had people, because a lot of things we do, approve just in-house administratively, and we have people try to say, you know, I'd rather just pay into the tree fund because I don't want it to block my building. But if there's room, we always require it. So that's the go-to first. If there's room on the site to plant them, you got to plant them on there. If there is no room because the zoning allows you, say, 100% coverage, then we accept it into the tree fund, sorry.
Thank you.
Yep.
If there are no other questions, I'd like to call.
I just want to ask for clarification. due to the question from the audience. I'm looking at this as TO, top of the roof deck is 58 feet 2 inches. That is the top of the roof at its highest point, correct? Not including parapets, any type of mechanicals, anything else. I'm asking him.
My understanding, based on what the architects have passed along, is that's the top of the roof. The flat portion of the roof structure behind the parapet is at 58.2. I can verify that, and as we move forward with the permitting process with the Planning and Zoning Department, we'll verify that, but what I've been told is that it's 58.2.
Yeah, and I can comment that we've had very in-depth conversations on that with our city attorney, their legal team, and architect and stuff like that. So they're well aware of, you can't stand on anything above 60 feet, and we won't issue a permit if that's the case.
Okay, I'd like to call motion. Motion is second, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
Okay, we roll call vote.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Deturi,
Yes.
Anderson,
No.
Knapp,
No.
McGillivray,
No.
and Treadwell,
Yes.
and Hershey.
Yes.
So we have 3 noes, 5 yeses.
Motion carries.
Four yeses.
Four
Four
yeses.
yeses.
There are only
Sorry.
7 of us here.
I think I counted Mitchell twice, sorry.
I'm not two people.
That carries.
It does carry,
Okay,
okay.
good. So
Yeah,
I'd
motion
just like to comment, it was, for me, it was the stucco.
Me as well.
Yeah, so I guess I've just been the minority again, following what I consider the ordinance and getting voted down.
Well, maybe the next time.
I
So,
think
I
that
think-
I would just say that according to the bottom of this, I just want to be very careful if we ever vote no and we deny things, because we have to establish the reason. So as of right now, if we don't decide to elaborate and go into the building materials part and re-examine that, then maybe that could stand, but I don't feel comfortable taking the chance of a lawsuit because there's not enough legs to something. So I just want to put that out there that, like, yes, I understand sometimes we want to vote no for things, but there have to be legs with it.
So
No.
one thing I would
There
like
are
to
legs.
recommend for maybe our next meeting in September is to bring this back for discussion on those materials. I've written some ordinances where we have put in tables where you either can have up to a certain percent of the facade covered in a material, or you must have a minimum of a certain material. Personally, I hate IFAS. I just think it looks cheap. Sorry, Dusty, he's not the architect, and so he's not the one making the business decisions for the client on that end. But I think there's, based on what I heard today, plenty of opportunity to dive into this and get it dialed in so it's not the applicant's burden to try to navigate something that's not very clear.
We can and should be more clear on that.
I think so, too.
For sure.
I agree,
Yeah.
we need to
You
bring
know,
that back.
And
would
I'll
that
say,
affect
just from
this
practice, as
project?
I interpreted it, I have been enforcing it much, much harder than it had been in the past on our administrative approvals. And I've actually gotten a lot of kickback about that, largely because it drives up costs, like Brian had mentioned, and stuff like that. But again, I think there's a better defined way to do this than what's in the ordinance today.
Let's
So if
definitely
you
have
support
that
that,
on the
we'll work
agenda.
on it to bring it back in September
Definitely,
at some point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And would that affect this project?
No,
It will not.
no.
It will go forward with
Yep.
plastic stucco.
Yeah, it got approved. Yep. No?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dusty. We'll be in touch on the next steps.
Thanks, Sean.
Let's move on to reports. Update from the city commission.
Next meeting is August the 18th.
We have a new city manager, we have a new deputy, we have a new city clerk, we have a new deputy city clerk, all in acting capacities.
Any updates from the planning department that we haven't discussed?
Not a whole lot. I think we've kind of touched on it. Leslie, is there anything that you can think of? I mentioned it earlier when I introduced the interns, I almost called Tots, sorry. We did submit our application in June for the bicycle-friendly community status, which is a recognition by the League of American Bicyclists. Going back at least 12 years ago, the city received a bronze certification. I don't know if some of you were around when that happened. It's good for a period of time. It has since expired. They only have one application deadline, so we had to work really, really hard to get it in. I don't know that it is the most robust application we could have put together in that timeline, but I want to commend staff and the interns for how hard they worked, as well as our partners. We decided to go for it nonetheless for the opportunity to get feedback on the application, then we can improve and reapply next year. So that was something that we did, and also the AARP, Aging Friendly Communities. So those are some things that we're working on that have actually given us a lot of good guidance internally as staff of things to think about. Leslie has set up a meeting later this month for all the entities that helped with the bicycle-friendly communities, because they learned a lot just reviewing the application of ideas that they may want to implement. So just grateful for everyone who worked on that and the collaboration.
One other thing I just bring to your attention is that we've been working with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation on a resiliency toolkit, and we have had 2 of 3, or I guess 3 of 4 meetings of a committee that represent different interests within the city, mostly staff, and looking at ways to improve resiliency going forward, to be more able to withstand economic, any kind of threats that come our way, whether it's weather or something that, a health scare. It could be something within the city or from outside forces, and how well prepared are we. So they're also making efforts to align it with the new strategic plan, and make sure that it coincides with the pillars within that plan. So this will be our final meeting this week on Thursday, and they're producing a document that will help us move forward. And it's been a great process and free to the city. So
Sounds great.
Yep.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Update from the Grand Traverse Commons Joint Planning Commission.
We had a short meeting. Well, no.
No.
A short agenda, a long meeting. So, we're starting the review of our master plan. The last time the master plan had a significant review was 2009, and more than perhaps any other portion of the city, the Grand Traverse Commons has seen a lot of change in the last 15 years. So we need to do some updates to what the infrastructure is, what the development landscape is, how many people live there, how many businesses are there, what the currently underway plan for future redevelopment is, and many other considerations.
Including parking, I hope.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, streets, parking.
All right.
Infrastructure, yeah.
Update from the Board of Zoning Appeals. We didn't meet. Update from the Riparian Buffer Committee.
We
Meeting
meet
Thursday.
All right. Looking forward to that report next time. Is there any closing public comment? Apparently not. And so this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I'm with you. I thought that standard was